Hey guys, it's Will here again, and we're talking a little bit more about doing that adaptive music class. So, one of the things that we need to think about right off the bat when we start working on adaptive music is the idea of an IEP goal. So, let's define IEP goal because I used it a lot last video, saying how the different types of classes we could have. But let's talk about it. So, an IEP is an individualized education plan. It's something that's determined by the teachers, the actual student, their parents, any of the therapists, and any of the stakeholders that might be involved. As a specialist, I am a music teacher, so I could technically, potentially, be a stakeholder. And what you would do is we would go over what kind of disability the student has, how it impacts their life, and then find goals that would be relevant to that student. Goals have to be something that can be monitored. So we can't just say, like in my case in music, well, the student will write a song. Well, that's not really a monitored goal because a song, you'd have to then define song, and then you have to define the terms of how long and what kind. So really, these goals need to be a little bit more simplistic and very specific. So for the purposes of what we're talking about, actually creating an adaptive music class, we need to consider two factors. First factor is, are you going to have an adaptive class that is all students that have disabilities? If you are, you can start to think about doing some IEPs that specifically have to do with the whole class. So a whole class IEP would be something that the whole class in general would need to work on, like a music concept or something else. So one of the things that I would consider if I was doing a whole class adaptive music, which I'm hoping I'm doing this year, but a whole class is I can keep a beat. Keeping a beat is a very simplistic and monitorable? I don't know if that's a word. It's a goal that can actually be monitored. What I mean by that is you can set micro goals, little tiny steps to get to this goal, and you can actually track the student's ability to do this. You can see if they can keep a beat right off the bat by playing something simple to see if they can pat their hands on their knees. If they can't, or they can, or can with some whatever, you have a baseline for that goal. That's the beginning of the goal, right? That doesn't mean that the goal is met, just, it is a goal. If they can do it well, then it might not need to be a goal, if you get what I'm saying. But you're going to find that I Can Keep a Beat is going to be very difficult because it requires cognition as well as motor skill function. So something that will cause them to have to think, what is the speed of the song and how do I move my body to the speed? That's a lot of work for a lot of students. I'm dealing with pre-K through 5. You might be dealing with older, but that's a lot of focus power there for those students. So doing something as simple as I Can Keep a Beat would be a great idea. Another thing you can do is I can sing a melody. Now, we're going to define melody by a set of notes that make a common song. We can even go as far as to say, I can sing the melody to the alphabet song. Now, the reason why I would recommend if you're going to do I Can Sing a Melody as your goal for your adaptive music class is the alphabet song is something they're going to be interacting with both in the academic classroom and in the music classroom. So they're going to really get a reinforcement of it. You can really focus while the teachers are focusing on A, B, C, D, getting the actual letters. You're going to be focusing on, can I raise the notes up high? Now the notes are going down low. This is a measurable goal because you're seeing if they get the up and the down. It's a little different than saying I can sing a song. I can write a song. We're being specific. We're talking about a specific melody, and we're picking a song that they'll hear frequently enough that it'll be reinforced. Another really good goal is I can tell the difference between loud and quiet. Sorry, I did yell. If you can't tell, I work with elementary school kids, which is why I'm constantly very lively when I present things. So I can tell the difference between loud and quiet is something that students with many different types of disabilities could potentially struggle with. I mean, if you think about it, you have to have the cognition to understand that you're hearing a difference. If it's an actual auditory disability they're having, maybe it's going to be much harder for them to distinguish a loud sound versus a soft sound. So you really need to pay attention to who's in your class and what the class makeup would be. A fourth and final one you could consider if you're doing a full class IEP, as in we're setting one instead of. It's weird to say IEP. I feel like that should be a CEP, a class educational plan, which is similar to a lesson plan, but not really because it's still super modified. Um, Sorry, I talk too much. So what I would consider is I can decipher fast and slow. So, same thing. You could use the melody unit that you did before if you want to progress through different goals through the year and have them listen to a melody at one speed and then sing it faster and then sing it slower or play it faster and play it slower. The point is to see if the students can identify that the song is going faster or slower. They can do this in many different ways. They can do it by, again, tapping beat, which is why I Can Keep a Beat is really my strongest recommendation for your very first music IEP goal. I Can Keep a Beat is like boss. That is, I would say, key. I would say key, very much so. That's my opinion, though. It's just me. But, you know, you could say I could go fast, I can go slow. Now, if you're in an older grade, like maybe 7th, 8th, even into the high school grades, you could attempt to do I Can Match a Pitch. This is really hard, though, because there are students who don't have disabilities who can't match the pitch. Tonality isn't necessarily something that is something all students learn, because to be perfectly honest, if everybody was able to do tonality, like matching pitches, identifying thirds, fourths, fifths, things like that, if everybody could do that, then everybody would be musicians. There's a reason why there's not everybody is a musician or a singer. It's something that you can do. I don't want to say it's something that you can do or can't do, but it's definitely a struggle to learn it if it doesn't come to you naturally. So I would steer clear of something like I can keep a I can match a pitch. I can identify the spaces or the amount of distance between notes. That might be a little difficult. Okay. All right. So that's what I would do if I was doing an actual full class that is adaptive music. And there are various ways you could do that. So after you select your IEP, all you got to do is start making micro goals that you're going to pay attention to. I would write them down per student so that you know what the micro goal is. Your micro goal for, I'm going to go back to what I say is king, the I Can Keep a Beat. The first thing might be I am moving. Not I am moving to the song, not I am moving. Just moving in the first place. And then I am moving in regular intervals. I am now padding in regular intervals. I am now holding sticks and striking an instrument at regular intervals. You see what I mean? So they're going to be really, really small micro changes up to the point where you finally I can copy the beat of a song. So these micro goals are really important for you as an educator, so that you don't get kind of fatigued or stressed out trying to help these students reach the meeting a beat, because it can get really, tiring. As a teacher, I can definitely say there are times where having to teach the same thing week after week after week after week after week, and it just feels like the students aren't making progress, or they're making such slow progress that it gets disheartening. You get burnt out, and not even like it's hard burnout. It's like if I have to teach you how to clap Twinkle Twinkle Little Star one more time, so help me. But what you got to remember is when you're dealing with students with disabilities, it's not that they are incapable, it's that they learn different and they take more time to do things. Micro goals is what keeps you as an educator moving. It keeps your brain going so you can actually see the progress. If you don't pay attention to those micro goals and you don't pay attention to what little progress could be happening, you are going to get frustrated. So micro goals, super important. All right. So we talked about how to pick an IEP for class. Now, what if we want to pick an IEP specifically for kids? You need to understand kids that aren't necessarily in adaptive music, but in the general music classroom. You need to understand that there are a bunch of disabilities that aren't noticeable. Crazy, right? They're not disabilities that are super apparent. They're not disabilities that you could just look and go, wow, that kid is neurodivergent. We're talking about things like dyslexia, or I don't remember what the number one is. I'm so sorry, guys. If you know what it is, you can feel free to put it inside the comments. It's like dyslexia. It's just a problem with numbers. That's a big thing. There are kids who have emotional issues that end up in an IEP, in a behavioral form, right? Or a behavioral plan. You can still use your music classroom to work on these goals or to set IEP goals for students. For example, if I have a student who is struggling with reading, and I see this a lot in the lower grades in particular, I'm talking third grade down into the kindergarten level, I might want to have them learn simple songs, but instead of me reading the lyrics or having them listen to the song right off the bat, it might behoove them to have you decode the words with it. Now, what am I saying? Am I saying turn your class into an entire English class lesson? Maybe. It's not like it's going to hurt the students who don't have a disability. In fact, all you're doing is reinforcing what they're doing. This is that idea of cross-teaching. But when you're doing it with a student on purpose, you are picking a student, they have an IEP goal that you want to help them work on in the actual music classroom. What you're going to do is you're going to make sure to monitor how well they are doing. It's all about making sure you're picking a goal that they can reach, making micro goals that they can reach, and then monitoring it, right? Same thing with behavioral goals. Nowadays in the classroom, you hear these things called SEL lessons, social emotional learning. Totally not a thing when I was growing up. I went to elementary school in the 90s, high school in the early 2000s. So we were socialized. We still played outside. We still went out, mom and dad would say, go outside. And when it's dark out, come home, that kind of stuff. It doesn't happen anymore. So a lot of these kids actually don't have the social emotional skills. And we're seeing a lot more behavioral IEPs coming up, 504 forms coming up, and behavioral plans coming up. So what can you do as a music teacher? Well, SEL. Add an SEL type goal to your actual music class for this specific student. And again, if you involve other students, great. You're just reinforcing what they're already doing. It doesn't hurt everyone to work on everything. So a goal might be sing a song about being sad. Whoa, that doesn't seem like much to us, especially if we don't have a social emotional problem or have a behavioral issue. But if you're somebody with a behavioral issue, that might be a really big deal. That may be super hard. Think about it. Think if you can't regulate how you feel. What if your brain just decided to stop pumping serotonin? Stop pumping the feel-good hormones. There's another one. I forgot what it is. It's not just serotonin. It's something else. I apologize. I'm a teacher, not a doctor. But imagine if you're not getting that feel-good hormone, so you're feeling depressed, angry, aggravated all the time. Expressing yourself, learning a song about feeling sad, learning a song to express when you're angry, that might actually be a big deal for you. And I know, again, it doesn't seem like much, but we're doing these micro goals, right? Micro goal. I sang a song about an emotion. I sang a song about an emotion that I've had. I sang a song about an emotion that I'm experiencing while I'm singing it. I sang a song that explains how to get past an emotion that I've been feeling. Do you see how those progress? So this is what I'm really, really, really hoping you guys take. For adaptive music, you can choose IEP goals for the entire classroom if you have a classroom specifically for students who have special needs or disabilities, or you can go ahead and make those IEP goals for your students in your room. Now, does it have to be on their IEP form? Now, this is where it gets tricky. I would love to say yes, please sit in the PPT meeting and get your goal in there. But the truth is, a specialist will rarely ever actually make it into a PPT meeting. It just is what it is. There's too much that goes on a PPT meeting. There's a lot of very important developmental things. It has a lot to do with child development and the way the brain is. So you might not get in there. What you can do is write down that IEP goal. And make your special education team aware that you're doing this. So the reason why you want to make your special education team aware that you're actually working on it is because what you're going to do is you're going to reinforce what they're trying to work on with these kids. You're going to become part of the team. Okay? If you make the special education team aware that there are IEP goals in your music classroom, what they're going to do is they're going to also be able to look at your data, see how they're progressing. Maybe you're the key. Maybe, just maybe, music is what gets the motor function going. Think about it. Low motor function, low finger skills. You teach them piano. You do something to support their hands so that they can do that, which I will show you all later at some point. All of a sudden they can use their fingers. And now their pincer grip is going better, and now they can eat with the fork. Or maybe they're very low verbal and you're teaching them a melody and all you get is, but that's the most sound they've ever made. I'm just saying. So that's how you can think of how to set IEP goals for either your class or for individual students in your class. More on this next week. I hope you all have a great week. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe and to share and to really, really think about how you could use these ideas. All right, have a great day. Bye, everyone.